Welcome to the Linguava podcast, The Invisible Profession, where we give you tools, tips, and resources in medical interpretation and translation that help bring to life our industry and ultimately help improve health outcomes for the limited English proficient communities. Before an assignment, you're talking about all the studying that an interpreter must do, making sure that you are also the subject matter expert in whatever subject you're going into, because you're going to be interpreting for a subject matter expert. So you also have to make sure that you're knowledgeable. Talk to us a little bit about how you prepare before you're getting ready to go in and interpret for a conference or for the UN. What information do you ask that is provided for you, and what information actually ends up getting provided, and how far off are they usually?
That's a very good question. And actually, that was the topic of my thesis during the master's that I took from the University of Geneva. And I specialized in preparation because you're very right. We might ask for information. We know what we need, but sometimes we don't get it from our clients. So, well, we can try, but sometimes we won't get to the information. But I've learned through experience and through my research that there are many things that we can do. On the one hand, to ask our clients the right questions, because our clients, they just want to have successful meetings. Sometimes they don't understand how interpreters work, so we need to educate them in terms of what are our actual needs. So the outcome of my thesis was specifically a preparation method to help interpreters to be ready and cover as much fronts as possible and try to get the client on your side and save them time, because if we ask for the right things, we might get it. So it's I'm going to summarize this method in a very simple way. Okay. I used an acronym that it was not my creation. This was an acronym created by an ethnographer, Dell Hymes, and it is called the speaking grid. That is what Dell Hymes created to describe how communication works. So the acronym is, let's start with the S. So you need to understand the situation, the place where you will be working in. If it is a hospital, well, hospitals are buildings with specific characteristics. If you're going to be working in an auditorium, well, where will the booth be located? Where will the interpreter be located? So you need to be aware of those implications that come from the actual building where you will be working. Right now, we are seeing an unprecedented change that we're not going to places to work. So work comes to us from our own home offices, like we're doing right now. We're communicating through a virtual platform. So is that the setting where you will be interpreting? Well, that will create certain implications. It might be that you have to travel to a different country, so that will require the interpreter to make some adjustments. Also, you need to be aware of who's going to be there, and having knowledge of who would the audience be. It might be an interview between 2 or 3 individuals. That changes the preparation completely. If it's going to be a keynote speech or a master class, just one person speaking and 10,000 students listening. So you need to understand who is talking to whom and what is the purpose of that conversation, because that would give you enough information. Let's say you have like the director general of your local hospital addressing a group of doctors that are just starting medical school. Of course, that doctor is going to be very knowledgeable, but if it's the commencement address of their school year, of course, the content will be half about medicine and half about motivation. So you can adapt your expectations to what people are trying to communicate. That same doctor might have a debriefing session with the experts from I don't know, the pediatrics ward. So they're going to be speaking in very technical terms. So you need to know in advance what is the purpose of that meeting. So that can tell you a lot, and interpreters can adjust their research to how technical the meeting will be if you think in advance. Because if you only receive information from your client, you're going to be interpreting and it's about and it's medical, okay, but it can't be about what field of medicine. So you need to know about that. And we need to know if it's going to be a very formal meeting, or is it going to be a casual conversation, or if it's going to be a class or a seminar. So those cues give you, as an interpreter, a lot of information because you can anticipate the format of the meeting. So we've covered the setting, we've covered participants, we've covered the ends, the protocols of communication. What are the tools that participants are going to use to communicate and reach the outcome, and that is the acts of speech. So in court, for example, you know that a lot of questions and answers will be used, but in court we know that even when a lawyer asks a question, they know the answer. So they're not using questions in the literal sense. So they might use questions to intimidate. They might use questions to confirm information. So if the interpreter, an untrained interpreter, listens to a question without that background and without the purpose and strategy behind it, they might not be getting the message across, because the strength and the power of using the language as a strategy might be lost, because that person might not be aware of what that lawyer is trying to achieve. And the same happens in a master class, for example. So the expert might ask questions to the audience, but as well, he or she knows the answer already, but that person is trying to connect with the audience or probably trigger participation. So we need to understand the protocols that are allowed during that particular meeting of people, or it could be a recorded interview. Interviews might be recorded and then broadcasted live. So during an interview of that sort, people can rehearse, people can go back and decide what to be included or not. So you can't expect a lot of repetition. And if the interpreter makes a mistake, it might be corrected, for example. But it's not very likely that you get those luxuries that you can record, rehearse, and change what you said. But now virtual settings are changing the way we communicate, so that might be allowed. So we've covered S, setting, participants for the P, E for the ends of the meeting. A represents the speech acts, which is linguistic theory, but it's mostly about how language is used as a strategy. The I, the instrumentalities, and that is key for interpreters, because as interpreters, we're an instrument of communication. So if we are going to be part of that exchange, that is going to change the dynamics for everybody else as well, and we need to be aware of that. And every time we participate as an interpreter, adjustments are expected from the audience, from the speakers. It might be an international meeting where you only have 2 languages or 27. Or it might be that you only have 1 language, 1 interpreter, but you are going to be speaking in front of a very large crowd, and the interpreter is asked to use the consecutive mode, and microphones will be used. So the interpreter needs to know that a different type of microphone, like right now I'm using a very practical microphone, but if I had to hold a microphone in my hand because no one planned to have a microphone stand for the interpreter, well, that can make me panic, or it could create an atmosphere that can create stress, because what if the interpreter says, no, I'm not going to hold the microphone, bring someone to hold the microphone for me. And this is something that I've done plenty of occasions when I've been asked to do consecutive in front of a large crowd and they didn't plan for the interpreter's needs. So I know what I need. You just, you want interpretation, have someone holding the microphone or bring me a microphone stand. But that is not professional. So if we are talking about, it is professional to tell the client what are your needs and what are the basic conditions for the interpreter to do a decent job. But what if I asked the right questions about the meeting and I knew that it was going to be in a large auditorium? Well, I could have advised my client, oh, please get ready a microphone stand for me if you want me to do a consecutive. Okay. And then the interpreter just arrives and at the podium and there's the interpreter's microphone. So that is what preparation entails a lot, not necessarily just the moment where the interpreter shows up to work. So preparation goes way before to the moment where the client decides to hire a professional to do their job. And our preparation ends when you get your paycheck. And sometimes we tend to focus right when we open our mouths to interpret or turn the microphone on and off. So if we see preparation as a comprehensive activity and as a habit, well, our realities and our clients' realities can be, we can change that and make a better experience, because we can build trust and we can get what we need when we need it. And we sometimes fail to ask the right questions. And of course, we can have plenty of questions. And even when we ask the questions, we might get the speech or the presentations 5 minutes before the speaker comes to the podium. And well, that's also our reality. And we need to be prepared for that. So that was the I, the instrumentalities. And now with the pandemics, the instruments that we used to use, all of us are changing. So we need to retrain ourselves and help our clients to understand how they can make a better experience when hire interpreters in their meetings. So, and we need to help. And we're still in the learning curve. So we need to learn pretty fast to be helpful to our clients as well. So the area of instrumentalities is very important because it's changing all the time. And then we have the N, that is the norms of interaction. You need to understand what is allowed and what is not allowed in a particular situation. If you're going to interpret for a wedding, well, we all know the rules. What happens during the service, it's all the same. There are patterns, and the same happens with every single interaction. So we need to understand what is allowed, and then the interpreter would have to play by those rules. Otherwise, we can create misunderstandings, or the flow of communication might get altered. So that was the N. And the G in this Dell Hymes acronym speaking is the genre. What is the type of the format of the meeting, so to speak. So we know that you have interviews, you have seminars, you have weddings, you have court hearings. So by understanding each reality, we can feel more comfortable in terms of expectation. So this in general is the theoretical foundation of the method that I use in most of my teachings. And from there, well, this is just the surface of all the preparation work that interpreters have to do for every single job, because every job is different.